Hey, what's up? This is me, bitch ass mofo. So I've been watching a lot of Batman movies lately, just old animated ones that are free on YouTube. Been watching them with some friends. It's been fun. And since we're getting news about some upcoming Batman movies, both the Batman Part One or Part Two rather, and the DCU Batman movies, I thought I would throw together this little list of five Batman villains I would like to see in an upcoming movie, either the Matt Reeves universe or the DCU. I'm of the opinion that they should stay separate. I respect the merger bros who want them to join, but it's probably not going to happen anyway. So I already won. So without further ado, here we go. Five Batman villains I want to see adapted, and five I don't. So we're gonna start with an honorable mention. Wait, hang on. All right, there, Clayface. He would be number two or one on my list of villains I want to see adapted, but he's already getting his own movie. So Clayface, you're good. You're good at Clayface. Hang on, let me make myself a little smaller because I don't want to be bigger than the slides. All right, here we go. So we're gonna start with the number five one I don't want to see adapted, and I kind of went with the softball one here because they're already soft confirmed. But here we go. Hang on. Raish and Talia al Ghul. I just don't care for these characters. The League of Assassins never really fit in with Batman's Rogues Gallery, in my opinion, and I think that they're kind of boring. I never really watched a Ra's al Ghul story that I was like really felt compelled by. I guess the closest is Batman Begins, but I don't absolutely love Batman Begins. I like it a lot. I think it's probably the best Batman movie out of that trilogy. Even if The Dark Knight is the best movie, Batman Begins is the best Batman movie, if that makes sense. But I don't know. I just think they're kind of boring. I think that they're really like so one of my big hopes for the new take on Batman with James Gunn is we're moving away from the realistic, grounded Batman. It's not actually realistic, but they don't want to acknowledge that. And I want to get into more like fantastic characters and like Ra's al Ghul. It's just a little bit too easy to just ignore the Lazarus stuff, and then he's just a boring like James Bond villain basically. And Talia, if we're not gonna have Ra's of the League, I don't know why Talia would show up. I never really felt like the chemistry between her and Bruce as much as like say Selina. So yeah, I'm okay just not seeing them. So moving on to the number five character, I do want to see a good adaptation of Bane. Emphasis on good because obviously we've gotten Bane in multiple movies at this point. We got him the terrible version of Batman and Robin, which I don't even need to say anything, and then the Dark Knight Rises, which was a good character, but he's not Bane. He is not. He doesn't resemble Bane at all. We've never gotten, and I think they just announced one today, actually, an animated Nightfall movie. But we never got a good adaptation of Bane that really shows his like intellect, his cunning, excuse me, his ability to play the long game, just wear Batman down, use his like smarts to get him at his absolute lowest before he goes in and just breaks him. Obviously, we've gotten the scene where Tom Hardy Bane breaks Batman's back. And that's all well and good, but without all the context building up to that, it's kind of just like a poorly choreographed fight where they like swing at each other like children, and then Bane just lifts up Batman and breaks him. I mean, some pretty good dialogue, but also he just gets memed on, and it's not really Bane as a character. So I want to see a good adaptation of Bane. Let him be the main big bad for a villain. If we could get anything resembling Arkham Origins Bane, I'm gonna feel satisfied. So moving on to the number four worst. And even though I just made this slideshow, I already forgot who's next. So here we go. Oh wait. Oh, yep. Here we go. Controversial one at number four. Mr. Freeze. So here's the thing about Mr. Freeze. He has one story. And you know that if they do him in the DCU or the Matt Reeves verse, they're going to adapt. They're not going to do him in the Matt Reeves one because he doesn't like the fantastic films, but whatever. They're going to do the one story, him trying to save his wife. But what, like, he just doesn't have legs as a character beyond that one story. I want to see, if we see Mr. Freeze, I want to see a version of the character that could be around for a while, like potentially multiple movies. And if they do him, I want them to skip the Nora storyline for now, return to it later, but for now, let's explore what he does after Nora. Because obviously he's going to have Nora as his origin. That's a staple at this point. But I wish that more stories explored what he does as a character after the Nora stuff is resolved. That's why one of my favorite free stories ever is the Batman Beyond Freeze comeback episode, where we see 50 years after the events of Batman the Animated Series, Nora's out of the picture, What does Freeze do with his life? And what do you know? They can tell good Freeze stories without doing Nora. So I guess this one is an asterisk. If you're gonna bring him, just don't do the Nora story. We already got that in Batman and Robin, and it sucked. But that's because the movie sucked. But I want to see a version of the character with a little bit more legs. So don't linger on Nora too long. And the next one was already spoiled, but it's going to be an evil Batman character. And I know what you're saying. Everybody's tired of evil, like, opposite characters. Nobody wants to see this shit. But Batman has some great ones to choose from. We got Owlman, just pure aura. Prometheus and Wrath and Scorn are like the evil version of Batman. They have the similar backstory to Batman, but they're working on opposite sides of the law. Wrath and Scorn could be cool if they bring in Robin into the DCU, which, if from what we know about Brave and the Bold, yes, it is going to be Damian Wayne Robin. This could be a fun way. And just, I feel like the evil Batmen stand out from the other evil, like the Ironmongers and those types, because it's just a gray Iron Man, where they are not actually carbon copies of Batman. They have similar skill sets to Batman, but they're kind of doing their own thing, and they could be ideologically opposed to him in interesting ways. And there's just a lot you could do with these characters. Any of these, but also there's like Killer Moth. You got like fucking ones that I'm not even remembering that I was thinking of before I started recording. You know how it is. There's so many to choose from. So I'd love to see an evil Batman opposite adapted in one of these movies. I think that could be a cool, like, maybe not main villain, minor villain, whatever. Owlman especially would be cool, but I don't know how you pull him off without pulling the alternate reality shit. But it looks like they're pulling the ultimate reality shit in the James Gunn universe anyway, so whatever. So anyway, number 3, don't want. Keep this one short. Joker and Harley Quinn, everybody's tired of them. Everybody wants them to give other villains a chance. Yeah, I feel the same way. Harley Quinn especially, I'm just sick of her. I really like the reimaginings of the character we've gotten lately, because Absolute Batman just had a really different version of Harley Quinn, and then Batman Cape Crusader. I'm covering Margot Robbie's beautiful face. Why am I doing that? Here we go. Cape Crusader had a really different version of Harley Quinn as well, but that show on the whole didn't like leave a big impact. So yeah, I'm gonna keep this one short. Everybody's sick of them. Me too. You get the idea. Next, Calendar Man, and this one is another hear me out, because you see Calendar Man, you put him in with Crazy Quilt and all the joke villains, but he could be cool. Now I'm not saying do a long Halloween with him and just make him the holiday killer, because that would be kind of boring. But I am saying that there's a lot of stories you could tell with a guy. Like, if you, the thing about Calendar Man is he works perfectly if you want to go goofy, because he has this outfit. But if you want to make him dark and serious, you can make him more like the Arkham version, where he's this dark, fucked up version of himself. Or you could, my preferred take, do something in between. Because just the idea of somebody who kills, like, based on dates isn't inherently as goofy as like Crazy Quilt or like Polka Dot Man or some of the crazier ones. That's like on par with like the gimmick of the Riddler, in my opinion, which we saw how well he was adapted in the Batman 22. So I say give Calendar Man a shot. You might be surprised. Moving on to the number 2, don't want. Red Hood, another one where I'm just gonna keep it really, really brief. Um, the problem with Red Hood is they really want to speedrun Jason's time as Robin. They don't give him time to be Robin anymore. Everybody just sees him as Red Hood. And I think Red Hood as a character doesn't work if we don't spend a bit of time with Jason as Robin beforehand. And I just know if they make him the main villain in one of these movies, we're only going to get a few brief flashbacks to him as Robin. You know, the Arkhamverse did it, where they just had the Joker, like, flashbacks to Robin. And the only good like story that's been told with that is the Under the Red Hood movie, where we flash back to his time as Robin, because we get a really clear idea of what their dynamic was like. But usually it's just like, well, if you yada yada his time as Robin and speedrun him to fucking dying and becoming Red Hood, it just doesn't have the impact. And Red Hood as a character has lost a lot of his aura. I had to put his latest costume from the newest comic run. I haven't read it, but that is a terrible costume. And it's just like, look at the aura loss from here to here, man. And the Arkham Knight, we don't even say anything. He's a fucking dork. Now, my number 2 most wanted, Poison fucking Ivy. Now, hear me out. First of all, let's get an obvious one out of the way. Yes, she's hot. Yes, I watched Batman and Robin in my formative years. But there's another side to that coin. The Batman and Robin version of that character made Poison Ivy fucking radioactive in the minds of these execs for decades. they first of all, there's the obsession with realistic Batman and not wanting to the fantastical villains, which is ridiculous because if you see the DCAU version of her right here, she didn't actually have any power. She just had a really good botany and she knew how to use her, feminine charms to manipulate people. There's so much you could do with this character. You could take her on an anti-hero direction, more of an environmentalist trying to help the environment. You could take her on a full-on villain. You could lean really hard into the seductive side. You could have her be the main villain. You could have her be a side villain. So many stories, so much untapped potential with this character, and they're getting it left on the goddamn table because the Batman and Robin version was so bad that nobody wanted to touch that character for decades, and because of they're afraid of she's too fantastic, but not really though. I mean, she is fantastic, but she's not too fantastical, if that makes sense. You could easily do a more grounded version of the character. Maybe she doesn't even mind control people. Maybe she doesn't manipulate plants. Maybe she just makes like the deadly lipstick. That's exactly what she was on Batman TAS in her initial appearance. I mean, she did have a mutant plant monster, but we don't have to put that part in. There's so much you could do with this character. You could have her go full on fantastical, full on vanilla. So much you could do. Why are we wasting her? Why are we wasting her? Just attaching her at the hip to Harley Quinn and not giving her anything of her own to do. It's one of my least favorite things about the modern take on the character. But anyway, moving on. Number one villain that I do not want to see them do. It's Hush. No points for guessing. Hush, they've tried so many times to make him cool. It's failed every time. The Arkham games fumbled it. The movie sucked. The comic runs there. It's not really a definitive, good Hush one. Nobody can make up their minds about who Hush is. Is it the Riddler or is it Thomas Elliot? Or is it both of them working together? Who gives a fuck? Because no matter what the answer to that question is, it doesn't change the fact that he's trying so hard to be cool and he's so lame. There's only so much you can do with the guy with Bruce Wayne's face. I mean, for one movie, it could be cool. And it pains my heart because it looks like the Batman Part 2, the Matt Reeves one, is going to have Hush as the main villain. They're talking about this one's never been done. It's tied to Bruce Wayne's past, and it's like that could only be Hush. So, even though he's my number one, most, least wanted villain to see adapted in a Batman movie, it looks like that's exactly what we're getting. So, hopefully, they just don't fuck it up. But, as for my number one most wanted, Hugo motherfucking Strange, baby. So much potential. Possibly even more than Poison Ivy just left on the table. A guy who is a genius when it comes to the criminal psyche, who is obsessed with Batman and actually wants to become Batman. So much you could do with Hugo Strange. So many stories you could tell. Again, main villain, side villain. You could have him be the overarching villain for a few movies even if you want to get really crazy. You could have him be like the role he had in this show where he was kind of egging the villains on, There's so much you could do with Hugo fucking Strange, man. I just think there's so many ways you could take him. You could have him be like a criminal psychiatrist. You could have him be this twisted experimenting mad scientist type that he is occasionally. You could do the evil extractor from Batman vs. Two-Face. So many things they could do, and what do? They don't use him, and I don't know why, because he's another one where he would be perfect if you want to take him in a more realistic direction, you could easily do that. If you want to take him in a more fantastical direction, you could easily do that. So, again, so much potential just left on the table. But yeah, that's my number one. That's my list of 5 Batman villains I want to see adapted, and 5 that I fucking don't. For the love of God, just give Joker and Harley a few. Give us one movie before you bring him in. At least one. Red Hood, don't even bother. Hush, don't even bother, even though you're going to. And then please give Hugo, Ivy, and Bane, give them good versions of themselves. Scarecrow as well. He's probably my number 6. But the thing is, Scarecrow at least has good stories lately. A lot of these characters just don't have much at all, let alone movies. But a great live action version is the best thing a character could get because then they get introduced to a wider audience. They start getting more, just everything. Please. But anyway, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.